In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alf the sacred river ran, through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. Hello, boys and girls. I was reading one of my favorite poems, Kubla Khan, written, I think about 180 years ago. That's scary. So, what am I doing reading poetry? Well, number one, I love poetry. Both Mrs. Bartoletti and I have several books. In fact, this is Mrs. Bartoletti's book, The Classic Hundreds. Got some great poems here by Christina Rossetti, Keats, I think Tennyson, Shakespeare, Wordsworth, Blake. So it's basically poetry in English. And someday, perhaps you'll get a book like that. Now, the second reason why I'm reading poetry, not just because I love it, is because we are going to be learning about poetry. In our class, we have read some poems, but I must admit we haven't read a lot, not a ton. And I think the time has come for us not just to read a few poems, but as part of Writer's Workshop, to start writing them. Okay, I've thought about this. This is something that we did previously in first grade. We don't do it that much anymore, but I found a book that I have that is part of the series that we use, and it's poetry. So I said, why not? I'm going to get some hints from that book. We're going to do Room 2 poetry, and we may be the only first grade doing that. I don't know. It's possible. I can't tell you. But anyway, be that as it may, poetry. Now, you in your heads may know some poems already, and that's great. A simple poem that almost all of us know. Roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. Yeah, it's simple, but it does the trick. Now, that poem, of course, rhymes. Certain words at the end of each line rhyme with another word that comes later. And that's very common in poetry, but in poetry, the lines don't have to rhyme. You don't have to have a word like blue, you. You don't have to do that. Dog, fog, polyester, semester, something like that. Poetry does not have to rhyme. It can. Now, the thing is with poetry, poets usually when they write because they see things in a new and fresh way. They just don't say, well, there's a red, I'm trying to think, no, there's a brown tree and it had green leaves. They could, but usually they try and imagine what they're looking at with a different aspect. How can I say that? With different eyes almost. They see things in a fresh, different way. I've got a quote from a poet, and her name is Patricia Hubbell. And she says, when I was 10 years old, I started a museum in the playhouse in our backyard. I filled the shelves with birds' nests, rocks, shells, pressed wildflowers. About the time I started the museum, I began to write poems. I wrote about the things in my museum. Birds' nests and rocks, leaves and butterflies found their way into the poems. That's pretty good. Not bad whatsoever. Okay, yeah. So the point is, Mr. and Mrs. Hubbell is saying that when she was able to collect objects and put them into a museum, she looked at them in a fresh and different way, and she described them in a different way. Again, not just saying, oh, the watch on Mr. Bartoletti's arm. It would be like the silver orb or circle that wound around Mr. Bartoletti's arm and almost got caught in the strands of his delicate hair. Sort of. The point is, boys and girls, she's telling us that, again, poets, they see things in a different way. So, let's look at this poem that this lady wrote. Her name is Zoe. I can't recall right now her full name. Sorry about that. But just look at this one. In fact, I'll lift this up if you don't mind. I just want us to look at this one. And notice what it says. If you can read that. The ceiling is the sky for the classroom. Isn't that pretty cool? If I try and get that out of there, it's kind of hard to see. But there you go. The ceiling, one line, next line is the sky, next line for the classroom. Now notice, it's not a sentence that goes all the way across the page. She decided to use 3 lines to do one sentence. A lot of times poets do that, okay? They will do that. The ceiling, first line, is the sky, second line, for the classroom, third line. Now isn't that pretty cool? The fact is, basically, she went ahead and she looked at the ceiling in a different way. Where's my head? There it is. Now, she could have just said, the ceiling is the part of the roof that we see when we're inside. What do I say about that? Boring. It is boring. Poets don't want to be boring unless there's something wrong with them, but I would say, generally speaking, they don't want to be boring. They want the people who read their poetry to see things in a different way, perhaps like they've never seen them. Now, think about this. In fact, what is this lady's name? I want to make sure she gets credit. Her name's Zoe. Oh, Zoe Ryder White. There you go. So basically, again, she saw the ceiling, but she said, no, wait a minute. No. The ceiling is the sky for the classroom. And isn't that true? When we're back in the classroom and we look at the ceiling, for us it is kind of like the sky. It is, because we don't see the sky. There's a ceiling. So for us that is. Okay? Now, pencil sharpener. You recall our pencil sharpener in our classroom. We had one that never doesn't work. It's the old one from like the 1940s. We have another one that's electric that you put the pencil in, right? And it goes. Now, if I wanted to be boring and say, if I were writing a poem, I could say, the pencil sharpener is a big gray and clear box. Does that sound poetic? Is that something that someone wants to read and say, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that wonderful? No. That's why I tell you, poets look at things in a fresh and new way. Not the ceiling. It's, wow, the sky. It's the heavens almost. Let me read this poem by Zoe White. And I'll put it close so you can see it pretty well. What's going on there? That's the thing when you're doing, I need a cameraman. My cousin's a director. Well, I think he's retired now, but anyway. Look at this one. I think there are 100 bees inside the pencil sharpener, and they buzz and buzz until my point is sharp. Oh, that's pretty good. So, Zoe White, Mr. and Mrs. White, she didn't go ahead like I said. She didn't just say, yeah, the pencil sharpener is gray and like a rectangle and it's got some clear stuff going on there. She said, trying to get this straight, she said, no, you know what? When I listen to the pencil sharpener, I think of bees. And guess what? It seems like I think there are 100 bees inside the pencil sharpener. She saw and heard, I should say, heard the sound of the pencil sharpener, zzz, like 100 bees. And she goes, yeah, and they buzz and buzz until my point is sharp. That's pretty clever. So again, she didn't just say the pencil sharpener is a rectangular plastic box, gray and clear, and it makes a grinding sound and then sharpens my point, the point of my pencil. Why not? Boring. So, look what she did. She said, to me, it sounds like 100 bees inside. And they buzz until my point is sharp. Maybe she's saying that the bees somehow are sharpening the pencil point. I don't know, but it sounds like it. And notice again, she didn't just write a long sentence and say, period here. She took a few words for each line. I think there are 100 bees inside the pencil sharpener, and they buzz and buzz until my point is sharp. That's pretty good. And don't forget, if you want to go ahead later and go back, you stop your video, you can look here and look at the poem again, and also the first one. Okay, so um, as I said, a poet doesn't want his or her poetry to be boring. He or she wants the reader to think, wow, isn't that something? She saw the pencil sharpener, the buzzing, or I should say the grinding, whatever, as if it were 100 bees going bzzz, and then all of a sudden, magically, they go ahead and they sharpen my pencil. My pencil is sharp. So it's almost like a magical thing, and poetry can be magical. There's no doubt whatsoever. Maybe next time I'll read some children's poems that I have. This book that I have is for adults, basically, but it's some good stuff. Now, what are you going to do? Well, basically, I'd like to see you go ahead and start developing and beginning to do your own poetry. Okay? So, what you need to do is this. In your house somewhere, it could be in your front lawn or backyard because you can go out there, no problem. I want you to go and look at objects. If you're inside the house, seriously, look at the refrigerator. Why not? Look at the desk that you have. Look at your computer. Okay? If Dad has an electric razor or an old-fashioned one like I use, look at that. Okay? Whatever Mom's got, take a look at it and see how you, in your mind and your eyes, can look at it in a new way. Hey, you know what? That refrigerator, it's not just a big, gigantic rectangle that's usually color white, sometimes metal, that just freezes things or keeps them cold. Oh no. You could say a gigantic block of white ice encased in metal. It traps the food and prevents the heat from scorching them as if in the Sahara Desert. I just made that up. Yep, I've written a couple poems in my time. Wrote one or two for my wife. So, basically, again, boys and girls, look at things in your house. And I want you to just, and you can do this with mom and dad, nanny, whatever, grandpa, etc., auntie, nanny, like I said, and look at them. And what I want you to do is don't start writing a poem yet, though, but get a piece of paper and just write the name of the object. So, for example, refrigerator. And then under that, just think of ways to describe the refrigerator that you've never thought of before. Again, I don't want you to write the poem yet. This is just the beginning. So again, under refrigerator, I could put huge block of ice. I could put also, encased in metal, traps the food, prevents scorching heat from entering, looks like a small car without wheels. I don't know. I'm just making that one up. But don't actually start yet to do this. And then get another object. It could be, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, there's so many things in the house. Whatever, cell phone. If you have the old-fashioned telephone like we do, great. Or a cell phone. If it's a cell phone for mom or dad or whoever, pick it up, look at it, write cell phone. And then just write whatever comes to mind that kind of describes it, but in a fresh way, in a new way. Okay, cell phone. Okay, let's see. Okay, think about the fact that it's got, the screen. Okay, tiny glass encased screen. Okay, numbers and letters. Okay, think about the fact that you can use the internet. You can say outside. Oh no, a way to reach the outside world. But just write down, like I said, fresh ways of looking at things you've seen before. So, example, again with our poems, the second one particularly. Okay, if I were to write down a pencil sharpener, I would just put under it 100 bees inside. They buzz. They keep buzzing until my point is sharp. Okay? Something like that. So, again, use your imagination. Don't start to write yet, really. I'm going to say that. Don't start yet to try and do a poem but just write words that come to your mind that can describe. Okay, so Mr. Bird's shirt, okay, we could say 1970s design. He likes that. 100% polyester, shiny, uh, you know, hot when worn in the summer. Um, Makes him, no, how can I say this? Makes Mr. Bird thinks he's a snazzy dresser. Okay, uh, whatever, something like that. So again, don't try and write the actual poem. Just put words underneath whatever you're looking at. I would encourage you and challenge you, look at least 3 or 4 objects in your house or just outside your house. And just think. Again, I'm trying to think like, what else could we say? This is off the cuff, of course. Someone's outside doing something. Okay, how about this? The ice cream man. He hasn't come by yet, or else I didn't hear him. We got 2 of them. Ice cream truck. Frozen delights. Songs that, uh, you know, fill the air like raindrops. And then just, put those words, like I said, under what you're looking at. But don't try yet to do the poem where, like we did on the board. Just do that, okay? Now, again, if you have to watch this video again, that's great. And I'm sure that mom or dad or some other adult can help you out. But that's what we're doing, boys and girls. But I expect you, please, on a piece of paper to do that. Get 3 or 4 objects and just write words that can describe that object or those objects, but in different ways. Again, no, ceiling, she didn't just say, okay, it's, made out of plaster. She goes, huh, it's sort of like the sky when you're inside. What else could she have put? She could have put, the lights are like stars or the moon. That's it. Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to go ahead and continue reading for a little while. Looking for something. Oh, there's some right there. Let's see. Oh, we're not going to read that one. Oh, wow, this is good. Ready? Last one. This is by Anonymous. Anonymous wrote a lot of poems. It's Western Wind. Western wind, when wilt thou blow? The small rain down can rain. Let me try that again. Sorry. Okay, we'll choose a different one. That one I'm not so sure about either. Let's try it because I'm serious. That. How about this one by Keats, which is a great one. Ode to a Nightingale. My heart aches and a drowsy numbness pains my sense as though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains 1 minute past and leathwards had sunk. That's pretty fancy there. You know what? I'm not going to say this. But he says, drowsy numbness pains. Wow. He didn't just say, my heart aches. He said also, a drowsy numbness pains. He saw it in that way. And like I said, some poems are more for adults, so we'll just stop right there. But okay, boys and girls, that's your task. Hope you had a good time. I had a good time describing it. I got to go ahead and finish some more stuff. Mrs. Bartoletti is at Trader Joe's in Silver Lake. When she comes back, I got to wash her car. And I got to vacuum too, so I got stuff to do. All right, we'll talk to you later. And have a good time writing poetry. Roses are red, violets are blue. Sugar is sweet. And you are too. Who wrote that?